Hello, my name is Angie, and today I'm responding to Sean's topic on the internet piracy. He claims that internet piracy benefits the entertainment industry, and his first claim is that the entertainment industry, including movies, television shows, and music, are actually making more money because of piracy. His second claim is that piracy helps increase publicity for artists and writers, and his last claim is that more movies and albums are being made and released every year than in previous years because of piracy. And I'm here to talk about the negativity of internet piracy. Again, his first claim is that the entertainment industry are actually making more money because of piracy. Well, according to the Institute for Policy Innovation, they conclude that global music piracy causes $12.5 billion of economic losses every year. 71,060 U.S. jobs are lost, a loss of about $2.7 billion in workers' earnings are lost too, and many other losses. As you can see, these are huge numbers. And one of his claims says that $35 billion has been achieved in 2012 because of internet piracy, but according to the BSA Global Software Piracy Study, it showed that $58.8 billion in revenue has been lost from piracy that same year. The next claim is that piracy helps increase publicity for artists and writers. Yes, it does help them, but being popular doesn't mean that they receive more money. Downloading and ripping files illegally doesn't only hurt the musicians, but it may also hurt yourself. Most people don't know the consequences of piracy, and under the law of Title 17 United States Code Sections 501 and 506, federal law provides severe civil and criminal penalties for the unauthorized reproduction, distribution, rental, and digital transmission of copyrighted sound recordings. The Recording Industry Association of America claims that 4 out of 5 digital recordings are actually illegal. And this means that the artist only gets paid for that one download. David Lowery, a musician and professor at the University of Georgia, explains that this behavior hurts musicians who earn an average of about $35,000 per year and gets no benefits. His last claim is that more movies and albums are being made and released every year because of piracy. If movies were made to be pirated, why would they continue to spend millions of dollars to make them? Countries where film piracy is rampant have typically increased production, is the only piece of evidence that Sean listed to support his claim. Well, in 2005, the average Hollywood film cost about $60 million to make, according to the Motion Picture Association of America. And MPAA also says that approximately 90% of newly released movies are pirated and can be traced to thieves. A study by the Canadian Intellectual Property Council concluded that file sharing of music has a strong negative effect on legitimate music purchases. The study, called The True Price of Peer-to-Peer, found that 75% of downloaders responded that if files weren't available, they would actually purchase the music. Only 25% of people said they wouldn't have bought the music they downloaded for free if it weren't available for pirating. The industry isn't making more money, popularity doesn't help, and movies and albums aren't made because of piracy. So in conclusion, Sean's claim is invalid, and internet piracy doesn't benefit the entertainment industry. Thank you.
All right, structural issues are all fine. On the first point on profits, you've got some pretty good evidence here. There's not really much discussion of what the advocate's evidence was, and the contrast here sounds like the difference between how much money the industry made versus how much it could have made. I'm not exactly sure how they estimate that. However, you've got some pretty authoritative numbers that are being presented here. I do think that you might contrast the evidence that you're citing to the evidence that the advocate cited in order to show the reliability of your information on the economic consequences compared to what the advocate presented, which may or may not have been more speculative, may have come from sources that have a particular bias or are engaged in denial denial as opposed to research. See, I think that that's one of the things that's missing from that argument. I do get the good counterclaim on the point, but when I'm supposed to make a judgment at the end of the argument, I need to have some standard by which to judge. I thought your second point was the one that made the most reasoning sense, and that's an argument that says popularity does not automatically translate into revenue, and that there is a consequence to the pirating. You've got some data that talks about how frequently digital recordings are pirated, and you mentioned what the average person who tries to make their living in the music industry earns, and you show that they are really on the brink of economic hardship. I mean, $35,000 a year, it's not quite poverty, but it's certainly not enough to raise a family on. And if you've got no benefits in the first place, then it really does seem like those people are being hurt quite a bit. I'm sure that another way that you can contrast this is that the advocate might be focusing on industries, parts of the industry that are relatively healthy, and maybe they don't suffer quite as much from the piracy, but the wider spread issue are among those parts of the industry that are marginal in nature, and that's where the harm really exists. I think that would have been a good distinguishing point to make. On the argument, there was one challenge to reasoning suggesting that the fact that production's gone up in places where piracy is highest is not really a reasonable way of inferring that piracy is enhancing production, because that simply means that there's more demand for product in those places where they're pirating, and the people who are currently producing it are maybe going to be replaced by people who are producing it someplace else. That doesn't prove that there isn't a harm from the piracy that's occurring now. And I thought that you did a pretty good job, again, presenting some statistical information on this. Once again, I think we could use a little bit more contrast to what the advocate's evidence was on those points. All right, thank you.